Hi, I hope you can see me / hear me. Sorry to be a little late. If you wouldn't mind letting me know if you can hear me, that would be great. Hi, welcome. I hope you're well. I hope you are staying safe and strong, and your loved ones are staying safe and strong, and that you like German Shepherds. Yes, okay, good. Okay, hello. Thank you so much for joining me. I want to talk about this particular moment in time and some of the things I've been thinking about. We'll just leave it at that. We'll just jump right into it. And but before I start, if you know the enneagram at all, if you know your type, please put it in chat. If you know the enneagram, if you're familiar with the enneagram but you're not sure what your type is, just let me know. Let me know anything about your relationship to this extraordinary system. That will help me tailor what I'm going to fix and to say. So this is not a big news flash, but a time of tremendous stress and fear. And the longer it goes on, the more, the smaller our world gets, because most of us staying home, reading things on places like Facebook, and we have a lot of fear and a lack of contact with each other. So those two things together are not a great recipe. So naturally, because we're humans, me too, I'm not trying to say I'm above this or anything, we go to our defenses at such times. And when those defenses don't work, like I still feel bad, even though I'm doing what I normally do when I'm faced with a challenge, then without mindfulness, or even with sometimes, we devolve to an even more confused way of responding. So it's dangerous. It's dangerous time. And the way we use our speech, both verbally and written, I actually can't think of anything more important right now, because that's what we have to connect us. Words and communications that happen in the ether, not face to face, but online, which is rife with possibility for projection. So how can we work with our projections? How can we actually say and do things that are helpful right now? How can we recognize that what we think may be helpful may actually not be helpful to others? So for me, a way of understanding this or examining it is the enneagram. Looks like this. I've been studying the enneagram for about as long as I've been studying Buddhism. That means for more than 20 years. And I use it every day, and I've never used it more than I'm using it right now. So I'm going to say some things about it that have been helpful to me. And if you are listening, there's a lag. There's like 10, 15 seconds. You're hearing me 10 or 15 seconds after I say what I'm saying. But if you could let me know, oh, I'm interested in this. Or, I mean, if you're not interested, you'll just click off. But it would help me to know. It would help me to know if this is interesting, and if you know your enneagram type, what it is. And I will type mine. I am a self-preservation 4. So the enneagram is divided into 3 triads. And I just made a whole series of videos on this, by the way. I'm going to post it throughout this week, so this will just touch on a few things. 8, 9, and 1 are grouped together as what is called the sensing triad or the instinctual triad. Those are people who move through the world based on some kind of inner knowing that they may or may not be able to give words to. Very powerful. 2, 3, and 4 are called the emotional triad. People who move through the world vibing or checking their feelings about something or someone to find out what that thing actually means to them. I mean, we all have feelings about a person or a job or an occurrence, but for the 2, 3s, and 4s, that's where a sense of reality comes from what I feel about it. For the other 2/3 of people, not so much, or less, let's say. So then the final triad, 5, 6, and 7, is called the mental triad. People for whom things become real when they understand them, not when they know what they feel about them, not when they have some sudden hit of inner knowing, but when they understand it. These are vast, broad overgeneralizations, so forgive me, 1s, 2s, 3s through 9s. I don't mean to give you short shrift, but that's a basic overview. So one way of beginning to understand how we respond to difficulty is to look at the default response within each triad to stress. Again, vastly overgeneralized and not true 100% of the time. However, this is where we're going to start. So 8, 9, and 1, the instinctual triad, the people who are like, this is it. Okay, got it. I don't know how I knew it, but I do. I'm going there. When there's a challenge there, when something gets in the way of an 8, 9, or a 1, especially 8 and 1, and they're blocked, there's something, it presents an obstacle to what they know is true, they tend to get angry. So it's sometimes called the anger triad. It's not called the asshole triad. It's just, there's nothing inherently wrong with anger unless it's used as a weapon against someone else. It's a weird form of wakefulness. But there are certain people that when things don't go their way, their first response is to get angry. I'm not saying that's good or bad, just saying it's true. Or it seems to be true. 2, 3, and 4, the emotional triad, when faced with challenges and difficulties, the emotions spin out. Again, vastly overgeneralized. So when emotions spin out, that can look like neediness, grasping, or depression. The emotions just kind of go, ugh. But there's a response in the emotional energy. Now, anger, of course, is an emotion, but it's not, and 2s, 3s, and 4s can get angry, of course, but work with me for right now and let's put anger in one category and sadness and in a different category. And then 5, 6, and 7, the mental triad, when things don't go their way and they're, this is what they use to make sense of everything, which is a brilliant, beautiful thing. Oh, this starts to speed up. Thinking starts to go faster and faster because this is my strength. Well, so what does it look like when thinking speeds up? When you're faced with something that's frightening you? Well, if I do this, that could happen. If I don't do that, then these other 3 things could happen. If I put this over here, then I'll have to do that with my pocket. And then if this person shows up, but not those other 2 people, then things are going to go really well. But if that first person doesn't, blah, 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 you get the point. Thinking speeds up. That can be called anxiety or paranoia because you're thinking, well, did you mean that? No, there's intelligence in anger, there's intelligence in sadness, there's intelligence in paranoia. That's what makes it so confusing. And one way of thinking of yourself is, well, where do I fall in these triads, vastly overgeneralized? Yeah, I think this will be a watchable later, Yael. So if you look on Facebook right now, for example, again, please forgive me for being so broadly overgeneralizing-y. You see anger. You see people going, I saw someone post this morning, the election's over. Trump's elected for another 4 years. In this big, brightly colored sort of placard. Well, no one's elected right now for the next 4 years. So, but there was just this blunt, it was like this blunt force, like, get your act together, everybody, or this is effed. And you could feel the aggression in it. Now, each of these types also has a superpower. So I'm going to explain what I see them as in a moment. But if you are tempted, whether you're an 8, 9, or 1 or anything else, to take out a blunt instrument of speech, be very careful. Whether it's written or oral, be very careful, because we don't know how that's going to reverberate with those who are reading it. You may feel better after you express it, and which tends to happen with people who are angry. And I have familiarity with this in my personal life. There are people on this triad, and if we get in a fight, they're like, well, we just talked about it, it's over. I got angry, I feel fine. And that's true, and I'm glad for them. However, I don't. So it's important, if you employ anger and you think you have every right to get angry, and you indeed may, and you may feel better when you express it, it might not be so good for everybody else. You may think you're doing us a favor, and you might be, but it's good to do the favor of people that are asking for the favor. 2, 3, and 4s on the enneagram on social media are perhaps doing things more like, we just need to take care of each other. This is my triad, so you may see on some of my posts, that's what I tend to go in that direction. We should take care of each other. There's so many people who are hurting. We need to look out for all the potential emotional consequences, and all of that is true. All that is true. And for your fellow emotional triad people are probably going, yeah. The other 2/3 are like, why? We got to do something. Then we can worry about how we feel. We got to figure out who's responsible. Then we can worry about how we feel. We got to figure out the cure, and then we can figure out how we feel. So there's nothing wrong with any of these responses, but they're just not the same for everyone. So that's where the importance of mindfulness comes in. Just because you're looking through your lens, I'm looking through my lens, it's just one lens of 9. And what are the other people seeing? There is no compassion without that question. I just will say that one more time. If you don't wonder how other people are seeing things through their own lens, there's no compassion possible. Again, a broad statement, but I'm going for the broad statements here. 5, 6s, and 7s, perhaps right now I see on social media are like, what a lot of theories, conspiracy and otherwise, because there's 1/3 of people find it very, very helpful and reassuring to have theories. Some of the theories are brilliant. Some of the theories are literally could cause death. So be careful. Be very, very careful. And you, again, may think, well, if I can present the theory of why this is happening, and the theory about what we should do, and the theories about what's going to happen when this is all over, that's actually helpful to people. No, it isn't. At least it isn't for 2/3 of people. So, going out for a walk. Thank you. So the first thing is, whatever your response is, I'm going to help people by fighting the power. I'm going to help people by caring about how they feel. I'm going to help people by explaining what's happening. Now, all 3 of those things are really good. But ask yourself this question: am I doing this to make them feel better? Or am I doing this to make myself feel better? Because it helps me offload some of my own anxiety. Ask yourself that question. I ask it all the time, and I'm often wrong. So I'll just say that. So I notice people are saying what their types are. That's fantastic. I also notice people are saying wings, 1 with a 2 wing or a 4 with a 5 wing. That's great. I'm a 4 too. However, I find with the wings that they're not quite that solid. So I don't like, I find at different points in my life and even in my day, I swing over to my 3 wing. At other points in my life or my day, I swing over to my 5 wing. So if I think, well, this is where I'm staying over here at 5, that's actually not true. I do notice, and I invite you to notice too, your other wing. Do you move? How do you move? Because you get the gifts of both wings as well as the difficulties. So I don't find that they're that engraved in stone. So then the other thing I want to mention is what's called the subtypes. The enneagram is 9 types. Here they are. All right. But there's something called the subtypes that I find to be of extraordinary importance, almost more important than type. And at this moment in time, when we're all trying to navigate a pandemic and uncertainty and emergencies and so on, that knowing your subtype is at least as important as knowing your type. So the subtypes refer to the 3 instinctual drives that we all share. We all have all of these. And for each of us, one is predominant, usually. The second and the third might be really close or not, but one drive comes first. Then if that one doesn't work, you go to the second one. If that one doesn't work, maybe you go to the third one. So I'm going to tell you what they are. And the subtypes apply. If you're a 4, if you're a 7, if you're a 2, there's still the subtypes within each type. So you could be this kind of one, that kind of one, or the third kind of one, and so forth. It's complicated, but stay with me because I actually find this to be the most important point. So the first drive that we all share is for self-preservation. I don't think we can argue about that. We have an instinctual drive to preserve our lives. We're sensitive to threat. We have fear that tries to tell us, don't walk down that street, walk down this street. We're wired to want food. We're wired to want shelter. We have an instinctual drive for self-preservation. For 1/3 of us, that's the strongest drive. The second drive we all share is called the social drive in this situation. And that is to belong to something, a group, whether it's a family or a political group or a community, a religion. We are sort of wired for the herd. Thank you, sweetie. Thank you. We're wired to be attuned to the herd and a little frightened if we feel too separated from the herd. So 1/3 of us, that's the primary orientation. Where am I in this group? And the third drive that we all share is called the sexual drive or the intimate drive. And it doesn't just mean you want to have sex with everyone all the time. Well, they may. It means we want to connect with one person. We all have that to one degree or another. We want to connect with one other person. Will someone understand me? Will I be able to relate to someone? And procreation and all that too, of course. So self-preservation, social, sexual. If you're a self-preservation subtype, just as an example, say you're going to, back in the day when you would go to someone's house for dinner, or you'd go to a professional meeting, let's say, which will happen again. In your self-preservation subtype, whether you're a 2 or a 6 or an 8, doesn't matter. But if you're a self-preservation subtype, you may be thinking things like, I wonder if the room will be too cold. I better bring layers. Or what am I going to sleep on? What if it's not comfortable? Maybe I should bring my own pillowcase. Or what if I don't like the food? I should bring some snacks. So food, shelter, warmth. That's what the self-preservation-y subtype people might be thinking. If you're going the same gathering, but you're a social subtype, probably not thinking about snacks. You're thinking about, am I proud to be a part of this group? Or how will the room be set up? How will I know where to sit? And if I have something to say, will people be able to hear me? And if people go out, are eating together, what does that look like? Will there be a seat for me? So that's very different than what if my room is too cold? And then the third subtype, the sexual or intimate subtype, are thinking about a different series of things. Thinking about, will there be someone there that I can share this experience with? Will there be someone there who I can talk to, who will see me and understand me, and someone that I can understand? Will I be able to connect with someone while this is all happening? So during our pandemic, our self-preservation friends, of which I am one, I am a self-preservation 4, we got the beans, cans of beans. Everybody's thinking about money and food and the necessities for everyday life. Well, the self-preservation people, we're in our glory right now. Not that we're happy, but we know how to do this. We got this. I've had a shelter in place box in my laundry closet for 8 years. It has every year I change out the gallon of water. There's bandages, there's duct tape. I don't know why someone said you should have it. Chargers for things that are solar powered. My mind goes to, what if something threatens my physical life? So I make preparations for it. It's useful, but can go, a little bit overboard sometimes. Social subtype people right now might be thinking things like, okay, I have some beans and and I'm not broke yet. Where are my people? I live in an apartment building and we have a Facebook page, and I see posts from people that are like, I'm losing it from lack of social connection. Anybody else? And we had been in stay-at-home advisory for 2 days. So, I'm not laughing at them. It's a real pain. So there's a special kind of pain for people for whom the social drive predominates. They're missing you in a different way. They're missing the group energy, and it's very, very hard, very, very hard. Self-preservation people were like, I got this, lock the door. And social people are like, when am I going to see you again? And the sexual subtype people, want to have, perhaps, again, vast overgeneralizations, contact with others who think the way they do or feel the way they do or are willing to listen to them. We all want to be listened to. We all want to know that there are those who agree with us. That's what's going to help them get through this. That's not going to help me get through this. I mean, I'm happy that I have people to talk to, but what helps me to get through this is knowing that I got the stockpile in place. If I didn't have that, I would be losing my shit. Social people, they need to know, well, when are the Zoom gatherings? When are we going to be, banging the pots and pans, which is so beautiful. And sexual subtype people are looking for personal connection and warmth. All three of those are important, obviously. But if you're one and your loved one or your family member is the other, and you're like, why is that so important to you? Well, you may be not looking through their lens. You may be looking through your own lens. So seeing things this way is the purpose is to have more compassion for yourself and others. So yeah, self-preservation, I do think, includes sensitivity to light or smells. It's a very physical, I am very attuned to my physical situation. I am, I have that too, Tracy Lynn. Anna is a sexual 4 and experiencing rage for all the intrusion of videos, right? From friends and fake news. It feels like it's an invasion of my space. It is. It is. I saw like 5 of those in the last 24 hours, and I'm like, what the fucking fuck are you people talking about? Excuse my language. Do you know? So the only thing, do you actually know what you're talking about? And I'm almost completely sure the answer is no. But when I look at the conspiracy theories and the spreading of these articles that explain things, it doesn't help to think, well, they may be a 5, 6, or 7, because it's still bullshit what they're doing. But it does sort of make me go, oh, there's something in there that they actually think is helpful, because they're wired to look for explanations. And they think that if we all knew the explanation and understood the explanation, that order would be restored. That's the end game, is restoring order. But however, stop doing it. So the last thing I want to say, and then if anybody wants to talk about any specific number on the Enneagram, I could do this all day because this is pretty much my favorite subject. There was this German psychoanalyst in the 40s and 50s, I think. Her name was Karen Horney, although it's spelled Horny, but I've heard it pronounced Horney, Horney. And she developed something called the Directional Theory that Enneagram students have co-opted and applied to the Enneagram. So the key is, what is this theory? And it posits also a group of 3 things. We've got the 3 triads, the 3 intelligences: mental, emotional, instinctual. You have them all, but one of them is strongest. The 3 instinctual drives: self-preservation, social, sexual. You got all 3, but one of them is probably strongest. And then the directional theory posits 3 responses to stress. And we all do all 3, but one of them is predominant. The first group of people move against the source of danger. I'm going to take it down. I'm going to fight it. Sometimes that's really important. And the rest of you aren't fighting it, you're pussies. That's not so helpful. Second group of people do what's called move toward the source of threat, which is like, okay, everybody just calm down. It's not that bad. Let's pacify the situation. You're upset, you're angry, you're threatening. Well, let's talk about it. That can be useful, but sometimes you're a pussy too. Excuse my language. I'm really just being myself right now. The third group of people do what's called move away. Just, I'm going to do something else. I'm not going to think about it. I'm not going to pay attention to it. So sometimes that's really useful. Sometimes it isn't. I am avoidant, moving away. My husband, who was kind enough to just come in and take the dog for a walk mere moments ago, is a moving against person. So when we have disagreements, he wants to talk about it and go, I'm upset. Why did you do this? Why did you say that? And that's his way of talking about it. And I just am like, so for a long time, we've been married now 21 years, but for a long time, and even still from time to time, my thought was, why are you being an ass? And sometimes he was. And his thought was, why are you avoiding me? And sometimes I was. But actually, we just had our ways of processing what was scaring us. So over time, he's come to give me some more space, and I have come to engage in conversations that I ordinarily would just rather avoid. Sometimes. So I'm going to look at these comments. I love you, most of yourself. That's so sweet. Thank you. There are a lot of comments here. I'll try to look at them because, again, I'll stay here all day and talk about this. It is my favorite, in addition to the precious holy Dharma, of course. So here's something that each type could do. Again, vast overgeneralization to be helpful. Ones who tend to see things very clearly, aka in black and white. They want to do the right thing. They can be very clear about what that thing is. They can stand up for what they think is right in the way that the rest of us don't. So thank you, ones. Thank you for looking for what went wrong and what we can do to make this right. Oh, a lot of people are doing that, but ones have a gift for it. Twos have a gift for love. They have a gift for just without even hardly talking to you, just looking at you, or even reading your post and going, I know, I get what you're feeling. And I'll hold that space with you. Now, each of the types does things that are really not helpful, but I'm going to focus on the helpful. So what do we need more than people who are going to try to set things right, and people who are willing to go into my own heart with me and care, because that is a superpower of two. Care about how you feel. And there's just 7 other ways of being helpful. Threes have an ability to accomplish tasks and get things done, no matter how messy things are. That is extraordinary. Like, oh, here's 500 piles of bleep, and one of them is the good one. They'll be like, they'll know exactly how to make it work. They'll know exactly how to accomplish whatever the goal is. Now, that may not sound like a superpower, but it is. It is. How many of us have things where like, oh yeah, I think I'd like to do that, or that's a really good idea, but that you just don't do it. Well, not threes. Like, oh, that's a good idea. I'd really like to do that. They do it. So we need that. We need that effectiveness right now. Fours, I am a 4, so I'll just speak personally about this. What 4s can do right now is be with you in the darkness. So I personally, again, I am a 4. I've often have told people who I love, I mean, I love you, but I'm not really a very great friend. I'm not great at being a friend. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. I'm not great at just chatting, or yeah, I've lost friends who are like, you don't care about me because you never call me. That's some of the most damaging things I've done in my life are because of this quality. And it's true. It's true. I'm not good at just going out and having fun and hanging out. I'm not good at that. But if you are being born or dying, call me, because I will show up. For whatever reasons, 4s think that when things are emotionally intense, now we're getting somewhere. Other people think, oh, things are getting emotionally intense, let me get out of here. Quite a bit of intelligence to that, but 4s think, oh, intense, let me in. So there's a lot of intensity right now. So the 4s in the world are going, I can help. 5s are holding their seat and coolly surveying the situation and noting the patterns and finding the reasons and understanding the dynamics in a way that the rest of us are too caught up in something else to do. So I call 5 the wizards, because they can see, because they're not hamstrung by certain things. But they're also very, can be quite fragile, and they may see a lot of things, but if you want to know what they are, you're going to have to ask and make it, ask in a way that they feel comfortable answering, because a lot of 5s are just content to keep it to themselves. The 6s in our world are the kind of people, again, vastly overgeneralized, who are always looking for danger and trying to sense the threat that's just under the surface. Well, now they don't have to look too far. So the 6s I know are like, everybody's like, oh my God, things are going wrong and those people are lying and this isn't true. And 6s are like, welcome to my world. This is how I see it all the time. So some of the 6s I know are actually kind of weirdly calm right now, because everybody's saying everything is effed up. And that it's not just the sixes out there going, hey, don't believe the authorities, everybody. Things are more effed up than you think. Well, no sixes, you don't have to convince us anymore. We're seeing it the way you do. And one of the many brilliances, gifts of six, is an undying concern for the underdog, for those who are being taken advantage of by the powers that be. So sixes, thank you for your skill, your gift for advocacy. This is way too general. I'll just say that about 100 more times. Sevens are just, it's almost impossible to get them to stop seeing what is possible. So right now we're like, many of us are like, oh, this, it's fucked. Not sevens. They may be saying, oh yeah, things are fucked, but they're like, you know what? That's also possible. And this could happen when all is said and done. And I have a vision of how this can actually, it's going to hurt, but how there can actually be some good in this. Sometimes they're being Pollyannas. Sometimes they're actually just seeing what is possible when the rest of us are shrouded in misery. The sevens can bring the joy. So thank you, sevens, for reminding us that we actually don't know what's going to happen. And therefore, all things are possible. Eights are, somebody in here said, I think eights are a problem or something along those lines. I sort of understand why you say that, but because eights can be the most aggressive and dominating types on the Enneagram, but they can also be the most protective and fierce and warrior-like because they're unafraid. They're just unafraid. They have a gift and a skill for leadership that, when held poorly, comes out as domination. But when held kindly, with compassion, with clarity, is, I'm going to show you how to get out of this. I got your back. I got your back, universe, because I'm the strongest one here. And they usually are. Eights have a strangely extraordinary life force energy, I've noticed, a physical stamina that they can outlast us all. So we need people right now who can outlast and who can stay strong and who can keep leading. So thank you, eights. And then finally, nines, who can see all points of view except their own, have that gift of being able to see everyone's point of view and make space for all of it. I call nines bodhisattvas, awakened beings, because they can actually see what you see. And when they are doing it, when they are trying to see everyone's point of view in order to not be cornered into expressing their own point of view, then it's easy to get lost. But when a nine has taken their seat and knows their point of view, generally speaking, is willing to acknowledge their own positions and can still see everyone else's position, what does our world need more than that? Nothing. So this is what I wanted to share. I have just over last week on Friday made this like series of videos. Each one's about between 5 and 10 minutes long, but there's about 10 of them about the Enneagram and the pandemic. And I'm going to put them up on Facebook and Instagram and so forth over the next few days. I don't want to upload all billion of them because it'd just be too overwhelming. So please keep me posted and let me know what you think and if this is useful and so forth. And I'm trying to see comments, but I'm finding it, for some reason I can't. Let me just refresh. Book recommendation. Yeah, A couple book recommendations. My favorite book, and I'll put this in chat. I'll put the author name, Eli Jackson Bear. And the reason I'm putting his name rather than the title is because the book was published under two titles. The Enneagram of Liberation and Freedom from Fixation, I think is the other title. And then I also love The Enneagram, it's just called The Enneagram by Helen Palmer. Those are my favorite, not Amy Palmer, Helen Palmer. Those are my favorite books about the Enneagram. I know there are a lot of people who appreciate the wisdom of the Enneagram. Type that in here too. That's the most popular book. It happens to be my least favorite, maybe because I'm a 4. But no, it happens to be my least favorite because I think it takes a psychological view of the Enneagram. And I'm not that interested in that view. I'm interested more in a less prescriptive view. So again, I've been studying this for over 20 years. I've really only taught it to friends. I've taught it a few times in the Open Heart Project. I'll be teaching it again in the Open Heart Project in like a half-day workshop. So if you're interested, go to openheartproject.com and just find a place to sign up for things. And I will stick around to see if there's any questions, and I'll come back once this is over to try to answer them, anything that comes up for people who watch the recording. To close, I'll just say, this is the time to expand your view and to not double down on your own opinions. Hold your opinions, be smart, not saying otherwise, but start to look for energies that are unlike your own. Because as I said in the very beginning, as time goes on and we become more uncertain and more fearful and more cloistered at home, more separated from each other, less connected to what we consider normal everyday life, it becomes dangerous in the way we speak to each other, and our need for security can cause us to promote ludicrous theories, express anger inappropriately, fall apart when people need us. And we don't want to do those things. We do not want to do those things. It's not just because it's bad for me if I do those things. It's bad for you if I do those things. So be cool, practice meditation, because the ability to not get angry inappropriately, to not fall apart inappropriately, because sometimes it's appropriate to fall apart, and to not promote ridiculous theories or even non-ridiculous theories, is grounded in your ability to be mindful. Can you have a space between your impulse and your action, your urge and your words? Well, if you can't, turn off social media and stay home, because it's dangerous for us people out there who just got their fire hose and are spewing things all around. If you can, or if you want to try, keep being real. Do what you can to create connection rather than disconnection. Be kind to people who need your kindness. Be patient with people who are struggling. Be impatient with people who you think are doing harm in a kind way. That's a real trick. That's a real skill. Can I point out what you're doing that is harmful, in my opinion, without ramping up the aggression? Very, very rare capacity. If you think you can do it or want to try, do it. And if you don't think you can or don't want to try, keep your mouth shut. So, blah, blah from me. I try my best to follow my own rules. I screw it up often. And to close, let me just wish for you the following. May you be safe. May you be well. May your loved ones be safe and well. May all those out there working in healthcare situations or grocery stores or delivering things know our gratitude. May you be safe and well. And may your immune system kick ass. Thank you for listening to me. I appreciate it.